Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm Carl Seibert. This week, we're going to look at some online photo metadata viewers. Now, first question that might pop to your mind is, what do I need that for? And the answer is that you probably don't, or maybe a better answer is that someday, in some odd case, perhaps you might, and that's why we took a survey of them. Maybe you're going to find yourself using somebody else's computer and your metadata reading applications or any metadata reading applications just aren't there. Or maybe you're encouraging a friend to actually look before they leap and see if there's maybe a copyright statement on a photo before they publish it. Who knows? So we took a survey of these sites. Almost all of these sites refer to extracting Exif metadata. It seems pretty clear that the public's perception is either that all metadata is Exif or that Exif metadata from their camera is all that exists. Yes, that is troubling. It shows how much work we have to do to convince people to mark up their pictures and to be careful before they publish them. But that is a topic for another day. Let's just dive into these things. First up, Jeffrey Friedel's Image Metadata Viewer. Now, Friedel is well known as a developer of plugins for Lightroom. Basically, he's a reputable guy. When he says he doesn't keep your picture and sell it to spammers, I tend to believe him. So here we have the viewer that he wrote and that he funds out of his own pocket, out of the goodness of his heart. And we will point it at a test image. Convince the CAPTCHA that we're not a robot, and press the big button. You can also give this site the URL of an image that's published on the web. And voila, here we have the return, formatted in nice little tables, and what we're seeing here is really the return from a comprehensive Exif tool query. He says in the fine print at the bottom, indeed, that he uses Phil Harvey's wonderful Exif tool program to extract this data. And there you go. He shows you the thumbnails, actually visibly shows it. He shows you all the Exif data. He shows you all the XMP data, all the IPTC data, your IIC profile. It's all here. This is straight out of Exif Tool. This is pretty much exactly what we've seen when I've used Exif Tool in some of these videos to execute the same kind of comprehensive query. So that's a good one, and it's exif.regex, regex.ifo. If it's the only takeaway from this video, note down that URL, and if you ever need to see your metadata, there you have it. Now, Friedel does fund this thing himself, so don't go there with thousands of images. Don't abuse his hospitality. But this is a great tool from a reputable developer. Now, if you use Flickr, you may love Flickr, and you may hate Flickr, but Flickr is ubiquitous. It has tons and tons and tons of pictures. You get a terabyte of storage and all that stuff. You also get an interface that just annoys the living bejeebers out of me, but there you go. Now, on the good side, Flickr respects, or at least partly respects, metadata. Whatever metadata is on your photo when you upload it to Flickr will be there when someone downloads it, as long as they download the original version. The renditions don't have any metadata, but the original version does. Now, we have this photo in the one-up view of Flickr. We scroll down here, and we can see that the headline field and the IPTC IIM caption field have been mapped into Flickr's headline and caption fields. And yes, indeed, that's editable, but it will not write back to your file. You can edit the caption and the headline for Flickr purposes, but it won't write back to your file. And the same thing is true of keywords. You can add keywords in Flickr, They work in Flickr's database, but they will not write back into the keyword field in your file. Keywords that are in your file do map to Flickr. On this page, we have this link here, a little unobtrusive thing. It says Show Exif, and we will click it. Now, it says Exif, but it's actually going to show us all of our metadata, and it also says Exif in all caps, which is the normal way for acronyms. Exif is the only acronym that I know of that's mixed case. The X, the I, and the F are supposed to be lowercase. So there. But then again, Flickr is the place where every word that ends in ER doesn't have the E. So there you have it. At the top of this, it really is Exif metadata. And here the very first field, or the second field after the flash fire field, is the image description field. This is the version of a caption that may or may not be written back into the Exif by various metadata authoring tools. We talked about that in last week's post. Anyway, there's your Exif data. As we continue to scroll down, now we're in IPTC IIM data. We keep on scrolling, and eventually we will find ourselves, this is all XMP data, and there's a ton of it on this file. And there you have it. Flickr actually shows us all the metadata that's on our images. So if you use Flickr, that's actually a really good thing. That might be a reason to use Flickr, in fact, depending on how you deal with the annoyance factor. And we move on to our next test subject. This is Google Photos. Now, Google Photos, kind of like Flickr, is great if you use it. I probably wouldn't use it for looking at metadata on photos specifically, although maybe if I just had one photo, what the heck. But it's only going to show you the caption. It happens to be the XMP version of the caption. I don't know what the fallback order is. It's a reputable provider, and you may already use the tool. If you do, there it is. That caption is a hint that the photographer did indeed fill out his metadata. If you dig a little more deeply, you're going to find the copyright, you're going to find the contact information, and what you need to know. I looked at a bunch of other online photo editors, we're a substitute for Photoshop sort of thing, including Adobe's own Photoshop Express. And none of them that I looked at had any metadata capabilities whatsoever. They wouldn't even show you the file information that every operating system and everybody else shows you, the create date and whatnot. Next up, ExifData.com. And all these URLs are on my blog post as URLs and as links. There is a link to the blog post in the description of the YouTube video. And there are just too many of them to replicate in the YouTube video description. So to find your way back to the URLs, take the link from the description to the blog post, and they're all there. Okay, this is an ad-supported site, and it has these kind of creepy, you hit this big button to start a download, and since you're working with files, you might accidentally hit it. And you get some software, you don't know what it is, and you probably don't need it or want it. I find that a little bit creepy. Anyway, you can send a file to this thing, or you can give it a URL of an image on the web, and it comes back to, with a gap in it, but it comes back to a complete, nicely formatted rendition of all the metadata that's on your photo. I don't know whether this is Exif Tool or Exif2, the fork of Exif Tool, or something else. But this is good, useful information. It's ad-supported, so you don't have to worry about abusing Jeffrey Friedel's hospitality. The only question is, who did I just upload that file to? Next up, we have PairXBoms dick pic locator that we wrote about last week. Now, this site's purpose is to generate a discussion about metadata, as well as being a statement about the dick pic social media phenomenon. But it's on this list. It doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot, but it is on this list because PairXBom is another ethical person. So it's here because I would have no qualms about sending a photo to his site. He wrote about the ethics of this rather extensively, in fact, and there's a link to that from my post about this site. So we'll just send him a test file and we'll see what we get back. And as you can see here, the picture does not have to be a penis. And you can even specify that, although since he doesn't look at it, I don't know what that really means. But it comes back with your GPS information to the umpteenth decimal point and also resolved to a street address. UrbanBird. At first I thought this site was actually for birders, and it may have originally been that way. It's a geotagging site. You upload pictures to it, and it creates a map showing you the location of all your pictures. I actually think that it's a sort of a general purpose travel tool of some sort. But in any case, it comes back with a fairly complete subset of your Exif data. And you can even edit your location data in this site. That's kind of fun. This site, imgonline.com.ua. UA is the top domain for Ukraine. And two top-level domains, I don't know. That kind of creeps me out. .com, .ua sort of sets me on edge. And I've actually seen some of those creepy download the software that you don't know what it is and don't need ads on this site. That too kind of put me on edge. But let's send it a picture and see what it does with it. Here we have it. And by the way, be careful when you use the link to this site. Use the one from my blog post, because if you just Google it and click on it, you're probably going to get the Russian language version. And indeed, here we have some kind of Russian language remnants in this table. But what we get is a pretty comprehensive table of our metadata. Exif, IPTC IIM, XMP, and so on. But what's cool about this site is that most of these fields, or at least quite a few of them, are in fact editable. So, if you need to mark up a picture, or maybe you just need to edit some metadata on a particular picture and you're in a pinch, imgonline.com.ua. If the cautionary caveats don't stop you, if security is not a really big thing, it could be an answer for you. I'd keep the URL handy in any case. Here we have ImageOps, imgops.com. It only works with URLs. You put a URL in it, it takes you to this menu page. You hit the button, and where are you? You're back at Jeffrey Friedel's image viewer, where he's paying for the bandwidth out of his pocket. I would call that bad cricket, and I would move on with extreme prejudice. Metapix. You can upload files, or you can do an online URL. I've chosen the latter for no particular reason. And here we have a subset of our Exif, a subset of XMP data, pretty complete, in fact. And way down at the bottom, an ICC profile. But conspicuously, we are missing our IPTC IIM data, which is the preferred or only or necessary version of the metadata for almost all present-day programs. So a site that reveals the metadata in the Exif and in the XMP and omits the IIM is really just not doing us a lot of good, so we'll just kind of move on from there. This one, onlineexifviewer.com. We'll choose a file. And here we are. And it promises to display Exif data, and sure enough, that's all it displays is Exif data. But look at this. It can't read the GPS data in this test file. So if you really do want to see something in Exif, it's probably going to be the GPS, and that site doesn't do it. So we move on once again. This one, VerExif.com, VerExif.com. We'll upload a picture to it. We'll view the Exif. And indeed, here we have it, subsetted. We got a little bit of Exif data. We have a map with our picture. And that's that. Now, this site doesn't do all that much, but what it can do that some of the others can't is it can strip the Exif for you, which is fine, I suppose. But if you want to strip the Exif off a photo, it's probably because you have privacy concerns, and do you really want to upload it to a site that you don't know anything about to accomplish that? Nah. Nope, neither do I, so we'll move on. Here we have Findexifcom. This one works on online photos, and yeah, here's one of those creepy, I don't know what it is, but the big start to download button advertisements. Here we have a pretty nicely formatted, I think it's a subset, but it's a nicely formatted subset of our Exif data. Okay, fine. Hasn't risen to the level of getting a recommendation from me. ExtractMetadata.com. You can use a file, or you can use a URL. I've pointed it to a file. And here we have our result. Yes, indeed. It read the GPS data, but it's just Exif data. So, okay, fine. If all you care about is Exif, you just want to check some GPS, that'll work for you. ExifViewer.com, Exif-viewer.com. Here we have the Exif data in our file. And yeah, it read the GPS. That's just fine. And here we have the Exif data in the file. And yeah, it read the GPS just fine. And here we have the Exif data in our file, and so on. It's returned 4 times. I don't know what's up with that. CameraSummarycom. Works with files. Promises to show us the Exif data. And indeed, here's our Exif data, but no GPS. And there's nothing down here but ads. So that doesn't sound like any fun. And last, and quite least, we have fileformat.info. We'll send it a file. This site purports to return your data in a downloadable file. But when you look at the file, it can either be an XML file or a text file, and there's nothing in it. There's not 1 byte of usable data. And the site has a sister site, which it touts as using the info utility in ImageMagick, which is a pretty powerful program. And it doesn't return a byte of usable data either, so we'll just scratch that one off the list. So there you have it. We have highly recommendable Jeffrey Friedel's site, the info functions in Flickr, the metadata functions, I should say, in Flickr. Actually pretty powerful, not too bad. Google helps a little bit. You can see if there's a caption. Exif Datacom returns the same information that Fridel's site does. It's advertising supported, and that's all grand. The Ukrainian site, imgonline.com, allows you to edit all of your Exif fields. And frankly, none of the rest of these are worth any sort of recommendation at all. You'll probably rarely need them. I would write down the URLs someplace, put it in a Google Keep note or something like that. Keep it handy in case it comes up, and in case it does, you'll have a tool at hand. Now, once again, I'm Carl Seibert. Thank you very much for watching. If you know anything about any of these sites, you've had some experience, if you want to vouch for any of them, if you have a horror story to tell about any of them, or if you know of some others that I just missed, jump in the comments, either on YouTube or at the bottom of the post on my site, and let me know. And once again, the URL of my blog, which will appear in the description, is carlseibert.com/metadata. Until next time, mind your metadata.